Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Health Made Simple Show. I'm your host, Dr. Bart. Another special episode for you today. Part of what makes it special is if you are watching this live, you can see I'm shooting from our farm, which also means that if you're listening to this or watching this, that at any given time, you might hear geese in the background doing what geese do. You might hear some chickens. You might hear my dogs. So again, in the event that those are some noises that pop up, I apologize. This is kind of how it goes with farm life. Anyway, so great episode for you today. Today I'm going to do a little deep dive into clinical insights. It's been a little while since we've done some clinical insights. This is one of my favorite episodes to always give because this is the insights that I have while I'm in clinic. I'm seeing patients or I'm out on the road speaking. Today's going to be a little combination of both of those, and then I'll give you a couple updates, some exciting things we're about to do here. So welcome everyone. Keep doing your thing. Keep sharing it out. Keep spreading the love, and let's hunker down. All right, and again, the clinical insights are always part of my reason I want to share them with you is to help us recognize that so many of the questions and the challenges we have are similar to other people. And that's why having these conversations out loud, sharing them with each other, and looking to each other for help and support is always a pretty good idea because a lot of people have the same challenges and maybe they've had some successes in those areas. So let's dive in. And again, these are hopefully going to help you continue your journey of just leveling up. And remember, we're trying to stack here. We're not trying to wave a magic wand and all of a sudden everything's better. We're literally just trying to stack our health habits, our commitments, quite frankly, to just keep leveling up so we become the best version of ourselves. So number one, I want to share with you something we got coming up that's really exciting. We're doing the annual Level Up program. It's coming up in April. It's going to be a 30-day challenge. This year, we're doing carnivore style, very similar to what we did last year. So it's a 30-day Level Up challenge. It's going to be in April. We'll kick it off. I'll have those dates specific to you probably by the time I publish this recording. Anyways, what is it? It's an opportunity for us to level up. So often, I tell people that at some point we have to draw a hard line to have an experience to move the needle when it comes to our health. And I'll tell you this in advance, most people don't do this because somewhere along the way, they listen to other people and saying why they shouldn't do a particular program. I don't care whether it's an exercise program, a dietary program, anything. We listen to the outside voice that tells us that maybe this isn't the thing. So it keeps us subdued in the sense of, well, that might be a little bit hard or a little bit risky. So therefore I won't do it. I can't tell you how important it is to allow ourselves to level ourselves up and do something a little outside of the box. A 30-day program at relatively a minimal cost is maybe one of the most significant things you can do. A lot of times to get private coaching, to get someone to hold you accountable for leveling up your health, your wealth, or relationships, we're talking about thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars. When quite frankly, you can do something like this and have an experience. So I'm going to encourage everyone listening to this. If you're looking for that little edge, you're looking to potentially lose a little weight, get back on track, to find out the best version of yourself, get rid of some brain fog, feel better, literally get the pain out of your body, join us. 30-day challenge, level up, carnivore style, and certainly don't. And listen, yes, it has to be a little bit challenging. There's going to be some of the things that we're going to do in that program that I'm intentionally holding back. So unfortunately, if you're the person that needs to know everything about the program before we start, I apologize in advance. I'm intentionally not doing that. I don't want people to prejudge what they can and cannot do. I promise you this. After working with thousands, tens of thousands of people over all these years, almost 3 freaking decades at this point, I promise you this is a program that you can do, and it will draw a nice hard line in the sand for you so you can have an experience of leveling up your health, leveling up your body, leveling up your mindset, and moving yourself into that next phase of your life. All right, with that being said, so that's kind of update number one. There's 2 other clinical insights I want to share with you, and I think these are relatively relevant for all of us because we'll see. Here we go. All right, number one is this. 14-year-old boy who has had psoriasis the majority of his life. And he's been a patient of mine he and his family have been a patient of mine for many years now. Wonderful people. And they're always looking for the opportunities to make some changes. I'd kind of put them in the category of the family's a little bit on a hippie side. And I say that, out of love and respect. It's kind of cool. They just do things a little bit differently, which is nice. They lean probably a little bit toward the vegetarian side. And usually, you've heard me before say that often what I'll see when people lean into vegan or vegetarian, it's often not vegetable based or plant based. It's often just carbohydrate based. And I think that holds true to most of the time. It's most vegetarians. I'm not trying to judge anything here. I'm just telling you my clinical experience. Most vegetarian and or plant-based diets, for the most part, are really anti-meat and anti-animal diets. They're not necessarily just plant or just vegetable or just fruit. So with that being said, that's kind of how this young man has lived, and he's had psoriasis the majority of his life. So I challenged him a little bit. 14 years old, it's fun to challenge, especially a young man like that, to do something that I think is almost intuitive or sounds almost fun to him. So what I challenge him to do is to go on almost an animal based diet, almost exclusively animals, where he was just eating animal protein every single day. He could bring in some fruits here and there, and I asked him to do it for 30 days. And there was a lot of reluctancy. It's just like the program I'm telling you about. 30 days, quite frankly, is a short period of time in our lives. It literally goes by like that, but it's also a pretty long time when you're trying to draw a hard line in the sand, especially when it comes to comfort. And trust me, everything about your nutrition right now is based on comfort and ease and how convenient it is and how boring it is or not, and your little taste buds and all that kind of stuff. So for this young guy, he said, all right, I'm up for it, because I told him I knew this. If we could get him on a no crap diet, that's what this diet was really all about, getting rid of all of the junk. So, for example, he was already gluten-free, yet he was gluten-free, but would eat anything for the most part that didn't have gluten in it. So if it was gluten-free cookies, gluten-free bread, gluten-free pastas, you're still coming into the diet. And it doesn't mean that those are healthy foods. They just mean that they don't have gluten in them, but it doesn't mean that they're healthy foods. So we had an agreement. We set up some boundaries. His mom was there. His younger sister was there. So this was all a really fun opportunity for him to do it. And did I expect him to be able to do it for 30 days? Honestly, not really. But I wanted him to at least have an experience of what it would be like if he just changed things up for a short period of time. And we created some really good definitions about what does it mean if you're just on gluten-free or whatnot. And so we pulled all of that out. There was nothing allowed but animal proteins and really some fruit and maybe a little bit of cheese. In this scenario, we took the cheese out simply because he doesn't do well with dairy. Anyways, 14 days go by. I see him back in the office. Actually, it was a little beyond 14 days. Comes in and he says, quite frankly, he says, I'm no longer doing the program. I said, okay. How long did you do it? 14 days is how long you did it. What was your experience? Well, I got to be honest with you. Most of my psoriasis got better. Hear this, folks. 14 years of his life, he's had psoriasis. For 14 days, we changed his diet. 14 days, we went on a no crap diet. I mean, everything that didn't have just, if it had one ingredient and he was allowed to eat it, basically animal protein, essential fatty acids, essential amino acids. Now, I'll tell you some of the other details, and don't judge us, but understand this. So I said, why in the world did you stop? And he said, well, I was bored. That was the honest answer. That's what I love about our youth. Sometimes they just give it to us clean. So he just said, yeah, I was bored. I was looking for other options. And yes, just eating hamburger meat every day and a little bit of chicken, I understand that can get boring. But it's just because we don't have the knowledge base and we don't have experience in opening up that box of opportunities. So nowadays, when you really start to look at the potential of just having animal proteins, a little bit of everything, there's so many good opportunities out there. So here's the victory here. So you might think, is he still doing it? No. Did some of his psoriasis already start coming back? The answer is yes. But here's where the victory is. By him having the experience, the seed is planted. That's what we need to know, folks. Now it's a forever truth in the back of his mind. If he really wants to clear up the psoriasis, he can no longer say, and no longer will say, I've tried everything. When people say things like, I've tried everything, doc, my spine cringes, because I know this. They've tried everything within their comfort zone and their knowledge base. And both of those usually go hand in hand. But when we open up the box and say, I'm willing to get uncomfortable, I'm willing to learn more, we often find other answers for our problems, and they become solutions and they become lifelong habits. So I'm super excited for this young man to know now in the back of his mind that there is an opportunity for him to get rid of his psoriasis. All right. So that's clinical insight number one. Clinical insight number two is actually going to come from my speaking tour. So if any of you have been following me on social media, I just got back from probably the most daunting speaking tour I've been on in the past. I spoke in three different Yeah, 3 different cities in 4 different days. It was on Friday, I was in Arizona. Saturday, I was up in Denver. Then we flew back over to Atlanta and spoke in Monday morning to a group in Atlanta. And the challenge here, so this is a good experience for me of something that I probably will not repeat in the past. I probably won't put that much on my schedule in the future because it was a little bit daunting. I think I was able to do the job that I was supposed to do, but it was at a cost that I wouldn't want to pay again. And that was on my own health, my own vitality. So those are the experiences that we must have in life, folks. That, yeah, sometimes we go for it all and we sit back and learn. I'm not judging any one of those that weren't bad or good. It was probably just too much to ask for me in that type of challenge. Too many variables, for example, flying. And then if the schedule gets a little bit wonky with the planes and whatnot, things go south real fast, which they did for me. I ended up spending about 22 hours in hotels and in airports and planes right before my first talk. So that started it off pretty challenging. Anyways, so what did I learn? So I'll give you a little context to this. I was speaking to one of the groups there. The first one I was speaking to was all entrepreneurs, and they happened to all be doctors. So I speak to them about health. The second one, I was teaching functional medicine, again, to all doctors, chiropractors, acupuncturists, naturopaths, all, maybe nurses, medical doctors, all different types, dentists, a little bit of everything in that room. Learn who all those practitioners are trying to be able to learn a little bit more about functional medicine and functional nutrition, incorporating their practices. So it's a big eye opener for them personally, but also looking at how they may be able to serve their patients down the road. And then last but not least, the group that I spoke to, a little bit different. They were more in the CEO or primary managers of different businesses. So 3 different groups, 3 different conversations, and absolutely interesting what I was able to take of it. So let me share that with you. Here's a couple of takeaways I had for you. One was that for all groups, which was a lot of different groups across the world, when it comes to our personal health, I'll tell you this, we don't have any, there's very little, or really what I'd call zero accountability for your personal health. And what does that mean? That most of us do not have anybody that is in a position to hold you accountable for your health. How do I know this? I walk around the room and I'm asking each individual, who holds you accountable for your health? If you gained 5 or 10 pounds this year. And when I'm talking to these doctors, okay, and I'm talking to, the heads of the businesses, the top down, the top dog, the alpha dog in the room here, who holds you accountable? And when I speak, it's crystal clear to them that I'm there to help and serve them. And yet sometimes the help and serve will feel a lot like tough love. So some of the gentlemen in the room, I was able to say things like, who's held you accountable for putting on clearly 10, 15, it might have been 50, 30 extra pounds over the last decade or two? Who holds you accountable for that? And the answer is nobody. Or if you're not eating your best, or you're drinking a little bit too much, or you're starting to eat, bagels, popcorn, and snacks during break during the day and whatnot. Who holds you accountable for your diet? Who holds you accountable for your exercise? Who holds you accountable for taking care of your body? The answer is absolutely zero. That goes across the board for all of us. All 3 groups right there, that is absolute positively. And I will say, here's the challenge, folks. Whether we like to hear this or not, here's reality. The majority of us, including myself, we have learned how to use food and alcohol as a way to comfort ourselves when we're uncomfortable, period. I'll give an example, and I share it all the time here on the podcast, that I am a stress eater. It's not uncommon for me to be watching a football game, watching my favorite sporting event, and rotating around the kitchen island, constantly visiting the fridge. I say that jokingly, but I'm not, because under stress, a lot of times our body is just asking us for a source of energy to manage the stress. So it wants the simplest form of energy that it can get, which usually comes in the source of carb or sugar. But when we step back and take a look at that and go, oh, got it. Maybe you're not a stress eater, but maybe you are a comfort eater. Maybe you use alcohol every day to just find a little place of comfort where you're uncomfortable. So for this, I would say number one is that very few of us have accountability. So how do we establish accountability? One, you may need to just set some personal, marks for yourself, saying, I'm going to lose a couple pounds this year. I'm going to exercise, and committing to what it is, the what, not the how, the what becomes absolutely imperative. Maybe you need to hire yourself a coach, a personal trainer, whatever it may be. Maybe you need to do some lab work to hold you accountable for, literally seeing things in black and white. But one thing I'm certain about is that very few people have accountability. So, which means that without accountability, very few of us are really, really stepping into our power, being the best versions of ourselves. So keep that in mind. Ask yourself right now, who holds you accountable for your health? The likelihood that it's your spouse, very unlikely, right? So, because we can't be picking on our spouse and be like, hey, you should put that donut down. If we do that, it's probably not going to end up in a good spot. So that's number one. That was crystal clear to me that the accountability for most people out there is not there, whether you're a doctor, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're running a company, a manager, or a regular, just everyday person out there, mom, dad, whatever it may be. Very, very likely you have no accountability for your health, which means that you have to have some tough conversations with yourself. And along the way, and that's why I encourage people, sometimes just running a nice set of comprehensive labs becomes the accountability. That's how I do it for myself. I run a comprehensive panel myself, typically 3, often 4 times a year, to keep myself accountable, especially at my age of 54, to see exactly where my health is going based on my actions and based on my habits. All right, so that's number one. Number two is this, is that kind of interesting here, that when I walked around the rooms each time here and I was asking people, how is your current state of health? This all ties together. The most common answer that I get is pretty good. And I will tell you folks right now that pretty good, if I was asking you right now, how's your health? And you were to say something like, I think I'm pretty good. If your answer is pretty good, then most likely you're not even tapping into nearly the potential that you have as being a healthy, strong human being. And I will say this, remember, your health is your currency. No doubt about it. It's your currency in your relationship with your spouse. It is in currency. It is the currency you have in terms of the relationship with your children and your family, your friends, your business. The better you are as a human being, the more energy and vitality you have, the better you are offering yourself to the rest of this world. That became crystal clear when I started to ask people very specifically, now, not only how is your health? Oh, pretty good, pretty good. And then I asked them, are you optimizing human function in these 3 categories? This is the takeaway I want you to take here from this clinical insight. Ask yourself, how are you doing when it comes to optimizing yourself with your movement, how you move? Are you doing the best that you can? How's your range of motion this year versus last year? How about your diet? How you eat, and then how you think, how you move, eat, and think. Those 3 categories. We did a deep dive at all 3 of these different presentations, I guess you want to call them, that I gave on an individual basis, everyone in the room, each time. Now we're talking hundreds of people. Every single person had an opportunity to level up their health with either how they moved, how they eat, or how they were thinking. So that's number 2 there. And then last but not least, when it comes to the overall conversation, the clinical insight with these folks was that in the event that you are moving forward and you're running into obstacles, stopping and quitting is not a good option. Adjusting, re-emphasizing what your goals are becomes the important part. So often what I find people do is that when we hit an obstacle, we stop. And this is a common theme. So these are my clinical insights after talking to hundreds of people who are just trying to continue to move forward and level up their bodies, level up their health, level up their lives, professionally, spiritually, whatever it may be, that often obstacles mean stopping. Don't let that happen to you. Don't let that obstacle. Look for the opportunity, which means you may have to level up your experiences. You may have to surrender for a moment, be like, all right, I'm going to hunker down and maybe do something like, well, I'm talking about our level up, our carnivore, styled level up program where for 30 days you go, I'm just going to go all in and I'm going to learn something from this experience. We need more experiences when it comes to our health. Most people don't have the experience of what it would take. What if I went all in on my exercise for 30 days? What if I went all in on my meditation for 30 days? I started every single day with a gratitude meditation. I'll tell you this right now, it changed your life. I'm saying that, but most of you are thinking, well, I don't know, maybe it could, should I keep hearing all that stuff. You have to have the experience, and that's where the accountability. So this all really ties together. Accountability, making observations of where you are with your health in your life, and then also recognizing, are your obstacles keeping you from moving forward? And oftentimes the answer is simply yes. All right, folks. So that's your clinical insights for this week's podcast. Hopefully you've enjoyed some of those in some way that they can shape you and make you the better version of you each time you hear these things. Keep doing a thing, keep sharing it up, keep sharing these out, keep spreading the love here. Appreciate you, and we'll see you in the next episode.